Start the morning, start the meeting with Adam getting here. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Kim. Whakataka te hau ke te iru. Whakataka te hau ke te tonga. Ia mā kena ke uta. Ia mā tara ke tai. Ke he ake ana ke arakura. Ke hau ke puka. Ke hau tu te hei mauri.
Jordan, would you like to go through the health and safety?
Yes. Morning, everyone. So, quick health and safety. If there's an emergency or anything like that, we're making our way through that door there out into the field. If you need toilets or anything like that, just down the hall, past reception on the right, you'll see a sign. So, yeah, if you need anything else, just let me know. Or Dave know. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and there's tea, coffee, and juice out with
Thank you, Jordan. Apologies. Is there any other apologies then through James Vaughan and Storm for this move? So move. Places of interest. Is there anyone with Noel and myself?
Noel.
Yeah, Robbie, but sort of might go without saying that I've got a grazing license. We're going to be talking about grazing license.
That's always on the, that's always on the yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we've got to move in a second for the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
And Southfield, sorry. Disclosures of interest. Collins, one. Minutes of the last Hauraki Scheme meeting.
I'll move them.
They're on out. Thank you. Second. So, again, thank you, Phil. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, never mind, but thank you. In the Waikato meeting nearly 3 weeks, a month or 3 weeks ago, we put up a that we put members from the scheme in a working group working with the our services on our research into the science into peat farming and use of peatland. That's a 4-year project that the council is funding at the moment. So they put forward 3 members of the Flood Protection Committee to work within that working group. So I'd like to ask for members. I don't think it's going to be a huge workload. It's just when we're wanting some good stakeholder interaction, you'll be used in that sort of format. So I'd like to see that we also put up 3 members of our committee to work with that group. So, yeah, and not you, everyone.
There's been quite a history within the Waikato group and to permitted activities and trying to get more of the drainage activities as permitted rather than having to go through consenting and the likes. And there was some perceived reluctance by the members. The council wasn't listening to them. And so sitting with staff and members of the ICM Directorate, Robbie and I came up, well, we all came to a conclusion that it would be best a group outside of these subcommittees, because the subcommittees have got a limited terms of reference, but we wanted the voice of landowners to be heard in a number of areas, and particularly the likes of the regional plan update, which includes the permitted activities and the there's a current program in relation to feedland. So it was thought that the best way to do it was to put a group of 6, 3 from each catchment from each catchment group in the subcommittee, and that be utilised as a recognised forum with direct engagement with the policy corporate services group. So that's the nuts on the results of it. Thank you. So we've got 3 names from Lower Waikato.
So I know there's at least 2 landowners here that have got peat farms, so I hope you would put your names forward, and we want one other, so thank you. So Brian, Connell, John, would you be interested in doing it? Because you're definitely a peat farmer.
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Okay, thank you, Chief. John Trent. Yeah. Also, myself and Noel and actually staff, Ruben, Adam, have been fully investigating and helping to move forward. Some of you will know this with a siphon system that looks to have, that may have some benefits for tidal zones in the catchments of both the Hauraki and Lower Waikato. And we're moving that forward. Staff are looking for a spot in the Hauraki Plains that there could be a trial or a different form of new and innovative ways of doing flood protection. So it's actually quite, we've moved into quite an amazing spot in the last 9 months. This is our audit since the field days last year, and we've been, when was that, Ruben? Two weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, we had Mark Pearson, Minister in Pyral, and he was definitely interested in where this could be used throughout New Zealand, not just in the Hauraki Plains. So the council has put forward that it's like research to find R&D to investigate a place where we can do this. So I'd just like to think that the committee would support this sort of work, and that we actually do this more often, that we try looking at new ways of doing business, because the cost of actually flood protection is very expensive. New assets of tens of millions of dollars, and if we can do them for a fraction of that, I think it's a way more innovative way of doing it. Yeah, so we've staff are investigating if there's a good spot in the Hauraki Plains at the moment, so we hopefully get that back in the next couple of weeks if there's a place in the Hauraki Plains for that. So I think yeah, it's been quite a bit of workload. And you want to talk to it a bit?
Well, no, I was a little bit sceptical because, you know, siphon systems have been around for young generations. But going up to Kaifra, having a look at up there, Helensville way, it's in a tidal situation. Each side of the tide, it seems to extend the ability of moving water. So I absolutely see the potential and absolutely supported by what's over here in the Hauraki that we're looking for. So that's what he says. It's not cheap, but it's still a hell of a lot cheaper than the schemes that we've got. So I think the council has got to be open to looking at new ideas, new ways. Certainly, we're all aware of the cost of things. So yeah, and I know it's opened up a wider discussion with the council about how much R&D we actually commissioning. There's not a lot of R&D funding around at the moment right throughout the country. Scientists are screaming for it. So yeah, I think it's positive. and looking forward to seeing where it lands and trial, and hopefully the Minister can find some funding to support the work.
Hey, Robert, can you circulate that presentation to the group? Oh, you have?
I've got the new one, so I can give it to Adam or.
Yeah, get it circulated so that everyone understands what the applications are.
Yeah.
This was a really good presentation.
Yeah, well, he's actually updated that again since then the other day.
Yeah, you sent it back.
Yeah. So, on top of that, we had, LGNZ, the chair of LGNZ in council last week, Sam Brunton. They're definitely pushing forward that there should be a development rate on, new developments, for, urban development. I made that quite clear that we needed to be a part, like land drainage and flood protection needs to be a part of that discussion. We're taking on urbanisation water and they've contributed nothing to flood protection over the 50 or 60 years, 80 years it's been working. So we need to be a part of that discussion. They understood that. It's because it's Karen's report today, we will talk about urbanisation and stuff on our schemes and our drainage. But also in that, we talked about depreciation model on flood protection and how I believe it's broken. It's not fit for purpose anymore. And they're definitely, as they have on 3 water assets, they're struggling with depreciating on those assets. So we sort of fall into the same space. So they've gone away to think about that. We definitely said we need to be talking to local central government and how we move forward with depreciating assets, how we revalue assets, and then we capitalise them again with, it's just, it feels, it's not a good space. Well, I don't feel it's in a good space when we're looking into how we do it. So I think that business model needs to be changed on the benefit of everybody. So it was a good discussion that they took that away, talked to Simon, this new MP, yeah, Simon wants. So yeah, I hope they bring that discussion up. Emma made it quite clear that she was going to push forward with that sort of discussion when she's in Wellington, our chair. So I hope that moves on, that we need to go forward with that. So I suppose that's all of my chair report. Thank you. Any questions?
Chair, just going back to the previous, where we funded 3 stakeholders to that committee, does that need to be a resolution or is it?
It's an action, I think. Yeah.
With the with regards to the softening system, so the funding for it is to be targeted right for this, or going to be coming to generates was this for the national this trial, done the plan section for the whole country. Really.
This is moving that fast that discussion hasn't even got to that point yet. It's actually moving faster than maybe how we're going to fund it. It's mostly getting a business case in front of central government, and it doesn't matter if it's, like we've got a meeting with Toby next week on the 19th to discuss it. Is it a drainage issue or is it a flood protection issue? Let's just get that out, leave it alone, because we want to work together to make this into a trial. I think that's more important. If we start breaking it down and say it's your job or our job, I think we just need one needs to lead it and one needs to fully support and be behind it. And let's get a business case to Wellington saying Waikato region and Hauraki district fully support this. That's what needs to happen. That's why we're having a meeting with Pamela's coming over from Hamilton on the 19th, and myself and the guys from Siphon to have an hour meeting with the Toby and your new CEO, David Spears, and we're going to talk through, I've already spoken to Toby about it, he 100% agreed, we both want to support each other 100% behind it, so that's revised at the moment.
It's just through the chair, and there was a lot of sort of interest in it from Hauraki when we went on the site visit. So they would definitely send applications for it. So potentially there is a lead from Hauraki district. And it may also be that the example was, and I think it's the fresh meat pump. A lot of regional councils around New Zealand, University, Auckland, and others put money into it. for the national benefit. So whilst we've got the fresh brandy pump in the Gillen's modified pump in the Waikato, it's for the food and benefits across the country. So if this can be put into that category, it will also attract funding from wider.
Mr. Chair, on another, going back to the urbanisation, this is a photo of the Kiko drainage situation. High-rise populations increased by 40%. And that drainage committee, Kiko has asked to become part of the resource consenting process to ensure that the urban sector ends up paying not just the general rate, but the target to alleviate the issues that's from that. It's just another.
Oh, I totally agree. Like when in the design of all our systems and schemes, urbanisation was never taken into account, and the speed of the water running off that going to land drainage has never been accounted for. So in design, so totally 100% support what you're saying. So thank you, Phil.
Is now the time to go through matters arising from the minutes?
I think we just need to mover and a seconder on that, and with that, the committee supports the not so much the siphon, but the R&D that the council's putting towards investigating new ways of doing business.
I'm more than happy to move that the committee fully supports any investigation in relation to the siphon.
No, I don't think anything should say siphon. It should be just R&D. Yeah, because then you're not pre-determining what it's going to be done for. That's
You need to add words to those.
Yeah.
So if you received any further that.
Proposed
R&D.
research and development.
Yeah.
The proposed research initiative.
Yeah, that's fine.
In particular, the siphon.
Oh, yeah, that's what you could do.
And put a comment in particular, current work on the siphon.
Mr. Chair, I think I want to talk about previous minutes from the last meeting before you get your chair's report.
That's the agenda. That's the agenda.
Siphon.
Siphon research. Siphon research.
It's an I in the siphons.
Which things are
Cool. Okay.
Yes, I think that should.
We're going to move in a second for that, please.
1, 2, 3, correct.
Yeah.
Second movement.
Can't move it. Peter, thank you. All in favour? Aye. So, Connell, we've already gone through. What were you asking?
Matters arising in relation to the minutes of the last meeting. I think we covered that.
Oh, okay. So it's covered.
Can we talk about that now?
There's issues and actions.
Well, know whether that issue is an action is related to the chair's report related to the previous minutes.
Previous minutes.
Talk about the previous minutes because we have this.
Okay.
It's not related to the minutes, the actions, issues and actions.
So what are you wanting to discuss, Paul?
Previous month. But we've received them, but we haven't talked about.
Yeah, it's probably should have come. Yeah, good.
Sorry. Okay. So what, okay, Con, did you want to speak to what you want to speak?
Yeah, so we can talk about the previous minutes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I just, on page 10, one of the actions from the previous meeting was the select committee requested that the ICM add an additional annual meeting to the Waikato. What it says Waikato Scheme Subcommittee, but it's meant to be Waikato Subcommittee. And just wondering if that conversation went.
I think, Greg, well, my understanding, Greg has agreed that if another meeting is required, it can take place. I will definitely, if I'm re-elected in the next triennium, that it will be quarterly meetings, that they're more connected to our ICM meeting dates and not be so far apart. Because it has been an issue for both Lower Waikato that you're getting budgets that are already could be 6 months old and not close enough in time frame. So there needs to be a lot more alignment taking place. We all agree with it. I think, yeah, it's definitely been. I think at times we've had issues with setting the agenda to make sure that we're most probably things that have happened too far back, but trying to get things in what's happening at the moment into agenda, and it's become too broad of this area that. So I believe that we need to go back to a 4-meeting agenda. There will be I'll be pushing for that in the next triennium, but it's definitely a decision that more of the discussion that we've had with Greg is how this forum will work when we went out for election, and Greg has promised me that Adam will still have a meeting that you can come to and you can discuss, but it just won't have it's the right word, Adam.
Should be like more of an informal working group getting together, discussing matters that
arise.
Yeah.
But that's we've had that meeting. We've had those discussions with Greg, and council's quite happy to make that happen. So don't think that you're going to all get thrown out in October. That's not going to happen. This discussion can still take, but it'll be in an informal meeting. So I hope that's clear. Yeah. So
Yeah, well, if I'm still here, I would be hoping that the subcommittees and the ICM committee would be in that first meeting, putting council together, being the chair, deputy chair, and throwing the ICM subcommittees are reconstituted immediately. We don't wait months. Look, I've talked with the chairman of the finance committee, and he's confirmed to me that the regional council spent multi-million dollars on a new in-house scheme, which is supposed to be getting used across the council. And last month we had the Lower Waikato scheme budgets that we receive, and I insist on having the budgets. I know it's painful, Ruben, but each of the drainage districts that we have and the scheme, we have the funding and the budgets and the work program, basically the budget and how it's progressing against the budget and etc. So we've got up-to-date finances. Well, we got last September's, I think, last month, because the council cannot produce timely financials. And they've heard from me. I know the chairman of the finance committee is absolutely pulling his hair out. I don't think it's still any left, actually. Seriously, he is quite frustrated. And it's like mine, I'm sure my colleagues are on the same. You can't get timely reporting. So there's a number of things that we can't bring that are out of sync. So we are trying to align, but the things look like a mountain and we're trying to push it against the bottom of it, and it's bloody hard to do. So I'm speaking traditionally as councillor, not as a council as such, but it is a hard piece to move with the project.
Mr. Chair, just in support of Conor, I had it on my list as well. I was going to bring it up on page 14. And on page 10, it's listed as an action. And yet in the issuance action table, it's not listed there. And I guess as far as the financials go, there's ways around that. You might only bring the financial every second meeting. There's ways to do that. Just
Look, I think everyone around this table is pleased that we do have the opportunity to come together twice a year and receive some sort of updates. But as we previously discussed a number of times, this action spoke to one other meeting. I think we spent some time discussing, or maybe fit into the council agenda better, but to be frank, free space throughout the year would allow some continuity of engagement. Because at the moment, covered ground was covered before. Yeah. A long time between drip and actual engagement, realistic engagement with this, what's happening is not actually all that practice. It's and I recognise here we are in the part of the election cycle that probably not going to change much in the next 6 months. But the reality I suspect the new council will need to consider is, does the council actually want to engage with targeted rate players around the flood protection scheme? And if the answer is no, there'll be consequences. So I would imagine there'll be a lot of targeted rate payers that would be pretty unhappy about it. If the answer is yes, then actually a reasonable amount of resource needs to be allocated to that. I wouldn't think it's excessive. I suspect that the type of meetings we've had this triennium, if they had been more frequent, effectively allows the type of engagement that is appropriate. So yes, at the cost of the council, I would certainly hope it's not excessive. But I guess the crux of the matter to me was that none of us are going to be alive forever. Some of us get hit by buses, some of us circumstances change. If I went to other members in my community and said it's important that somebody's a part from our community as a part of this committee, any sensible, critically minded person would look at it and think, okay, that's going to take this much engagement of my time. What impact is that actually going to have on my community? And I suspect at the moment, the majority would say, actually, that committee doesn't really cut it. And I guess I'm just adding to the points for consideration when the next council talks about it, because if this is not effective and we can't attract reasonable people onto it to have proper input, then we're certainly not achieving what needs to be achieved. And it's too important to get wrong.
And look, Conal, I'm really pleased to articulate what you've just said insofar as let's step back a moment to the fight that Robbie and I had, and supported by ultimately a majority to bring these committees back in the form that we got them in. And you were well aware of the issues there. There was a real sense amongst some of the councillors that have been around that we were a problem, the previous committees. I was heavily involved on the other side previously as well. And so we got what we got, and I think we have shown that the committees are of benefit. I don't know anyone around the council table who is against what we have achieved and what we are doing. What we have to do is then take it forward. So your comments are absolutely relevant. I would like to see somehow that they're captured, because when it comes to the makeup and the amount of meetings we have next training, is that these comments are taken on board and we can demonstrate. And I think most of the councillors that I talk to, and probably all of them from time to time, are happy with where we're progressing. But that's the hand that we were dealt by the council that was rather, they were anti. There's a whole lot of things that were put up that were wrong, and so they got rid of it. We'll turn that around. So I understand the frustration. We've got the same comments coming out of Lower Waikato. It's now over to us we've got 5 councillors of 14 in the room today. So I think those comments are well noted. So if you don't know, while I'm sitting there in my floral shirt, you've got Ben and Karakia, of course, probably on, and of course you've got the staff. So those comments are well made. Thank you.
Wondering whether ICM could do a report on this, because at the moment the subcommittee is requesting ICM. Is there something we can do at ICM? Because this is the last meeting we'll have until September for this committee. Subcommittee. Can ICM actually look at it and maybe come back and get some comments from members? Because we're only talking about 2 areas, and to emphasise the fact that these are targeted ratepayers who generate X amount of income for the council. We're not talking about these committees coming back from Taupo or other places.
No, my whātea is interest in some of them to come back.
Yeah.
Like Mike's really wants a Taupo catchment to come back with the erosion that happens on around Taupo and
But at the moment we've got these 2.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
let's secure the ones we've got.
Yeah.
And
So
the other question you asked us about people being online. We'll get to
That's probably a detail, but maybe. Do we not have the facility for members to attend electronically?
So it's within the legislation that the councils can extend by way of current means. So
I think that's just a subset of the principle, but it's the most organisations that the member can't make it, there's usually the option to attend. That's probably something that can be dealt with later.
my understanding is that towards the end of the training, start making up a report for briefing to the incoming council.
Yep.
And the likes of these comments will be encapsulated in that report. So ICM will be feeding into that briefing document, and that's where the recommendations to the incoming council come from. So I don't know whether we need specific feedback or we take what's coming from both subcommittees. Your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, please, Mr. Chairman. So may I suggest an approach going forward, and we'll have to be corrected by my democracy services colleagues here. I think the point's been well made, and I think what we could do is note it down, both Waikato and the Hauraki Subcommittee perspective, that I'm hearing 4 meetings per year going forward. This year is locked in already, I think. Not subject that we might have an informal catch up over the, I guess, when the council goes into recess over the election period, which is from September through to November. So we can certainly work on that. Going forward, I think when it comes to the time we start to prepare a report for matters for the new council to consider, the subcommittee, I guess, terms of reference and including meeting frequency could be tabled at that point. Council resolution, it's a recommendation from the councillors from there going forward would resolute that.
Well, and in terms of reference there on page 3, it's a minimum of 2 meetings per year. It doesn't say maximum.
Yeah, unless someone says something that is improved by catchment. I can probably provide a bit of insight here. Towards the end of the training, we Democracy Services works with all of the directorates, and we get feedback, as much feedback as we can, about the makeup of committees. So we look at the number of committees we've got, we look at the terms of references, the powers, the number of members, all that sort of stuff. And we try and pull it all together. We try and get feedback from the members as well. And then we buck it all together into a report for the incoming council to consider at the start of the next training how they're going to build those committees. And ultimately, of course, the decision's then up to them as into how many, what powers they delegate, and so on and so forth. Secondly, I can talk to the virtual attendance thing. This is a bit of a hornet's nest in a roundabout fashion because we have to weigh up venue versus technology, so to speak. So, for example, this meeting here, yes, you could attend virtually. We've kind of got a setup there, which is okay. Like from a remote attendee point of view, it's probably not ideal. Likewise, the chamber has better facilities for that remote attendance, but of course that's a room an hour's drive away, right? So But it's weighing up whether where you want the actual meeting to be held versus the ability of people to remotely attend. Like it could be more attractive for some to have that meeting in the chamber and attend virtually versus have it here and some people attend virtually depending on how many people you want in person having to travel versus how good that remote attendance can be. I hope that was helpful.
If we wanted to do more virtual meetings, it most probably be the easiest would be move to the Hauraki chambers.
Or
Chambers, one or the other, because to have, you've got to have good audio to do Teams meetings, and I'd say we'd struggle with that because there's no microphone. Well, I think there's microphones in the booth here.
No, it's just that.
That's up to that.
Yeah.
So you'd struggle to do a Teams meeting in here, so we definitely need to move to a chambers to do Teams.
As I said, I think that's a sub issue. I mean, meeting 3 or 4 times a year. I'll be able to attend virtually. It's a nice to have, not a need to have.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I thought that's why we were meeting here, not at Springdale, so that we could. And I think we actually have had people attend.
Yeah.
Well, it's not perfect, but probably good enough.
Yeah.
I could hear okay.
We can have staff presenting from Hamilton.
Yeah.
That's
You'll have one today.
so that's
More this is that.
Just on that, that does reduce the staff cost, which was one of the reasons for the other scheme's been closed down.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is there any more? You clear with actions and so we can have a move of that.
We've already moved this. So it's
I have to do
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So you just need to move from C. Oh, no, you've never done it. It's
Doesn't it?
so you need to get the game already. Just
So where we can,
Right.
these are moving around, actions to
So page 14, the agenda. Yeah, one of them.
is the way. So we need to do see.
Do it now.
We just did the balance of the last meeting, right?
Yes.
And
We-
we received them
Yeah.
and we've discussed them.
Yeah.
So now the next item is action.
We're down to number item 6.2.
Okay. It's now on the same page.
I'm assuming I can speak to that one. So we're going to take this report as read. There's a number of issues that were arose from the previous meeting that have been completed. The one that is still work in progress, the one that we've already touched on already around the urbanisation. I might hand over to Reuben to give you a bit of a 101 update on where we're at with that. But we are working on a review document. There's potential policy regarding the impacts of urbanisation laws around the area. It's not just also this area, so affects the Waikato subdivision area as well, with the growth around Hamilton, Narra Waikato, and like this as well. Also, we'll comment that I think it's fair to say that our relationship with our district council colleagues around this table and also Waikato have improved remarkably over the last few years, and we have a really good, a better understanding and getting into these processes earlier than what we used to. And so the relationship with the staff is working much better. And so when we get notifications of development, of zone rezoning, we're having those conversations up front to ensure that land drainage in particular being put on the table and put on the radar as early as possible, and working through with the Waikato District, Hauraki, etc. Staff and temperamental, so we can foreshadow any potential conflicts or issues that may arise out of that, because it is a critical interface. Making sure that even the public understand that when they've got properties, they're buying land. LIM reports state that when you're buying the property, you are also paying land drainage. And that land drainage is to be, obviously provided for. And urbanisation, as you know, happens over time with creep, and it's important that we're managing that community. So from the district council planning technical process, things are much better. We're still got work in progress, I guess, across the region on there. But Ruben, maybe just hand over to you. I know you've been quite deeply involved in some of these conversations. Anything on add?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I guess the issue here is that the process is there for transferring rural areas to urban areas and transferring from regional councils to TAs and SIS in the local government act of New Zealand. So there is a process you go through, which is quite arduous. So whether you write policy around that, there's a process that is arduous and not necessarily as effective as you want, because you've got to get 51% of the people involved in that entire area to say yes to do it. And I think in the past, just apathy has made that fail. So my view is that rather than rely on that process, we need to be more effective in it. So we've done that by, like Adam was saying, developing some relationships with our key councillors, Waikato District, Waikato, Timatanga. So now, generally, whenever there's some sort of subdivision, some sort of urbanisation, that going on, we're getting involved in it right at the start. So which means that we can look at it, and the follow-on from that is we've got a lot of developers that are coming directly to us as well, saying, we're doing this subdivision, what does that mean for land drainage? And the corollary is that if they come through a consent process, and if we were a technical advisor as part of a road process, we could charge. But my view is that with a couple of hours and sometimes more upfront, we're more effective to be in there right at grassroots, which means saying to them, actually, there's no land drainage issues here. There's not a problem for you, so go forward. But there might be a stormwater issue, so we work closely with with Brian and that, and the road team as well around that. But if there is a issue there where we've got drains, we need to have easements on them. We need to make sure we've got access. We need to make sure that they've got attenuation for up to the 10-year flow. We need to understand where the 100-year flow goes, whether that's going to divert from different catchments. So we've actually been very active around that, around Hamilton, around Narrawhia, around Matamata, around Te Aroha, around Hauraki. We've looked at a lot of those issues coming in across our desks, across my desk all the time now. So we're probably more active now than we've ever been in that space. And that's where we need to be, is right at the leading edge of it. Then you get fast track coming. So there's a whole lot of fast track applications coming down. It's even more important that we're at the front of it, because we now become a effective party once that's been lodged with the council. So we're looking at, we've got solar farms popping up everywhere. We've just got the Tale or the, Te Aroha West extension to that solar farm there. So while that doesn't necessarily affect any drainage, the relationship we built with the first about that to make sure that, the drainage is cleaned and that we've got access and easements in place, we've been able to take that thing into that fast track process. We've got 3 solar farms in central Waikato or lower Waikato around around the Rangiora areas. There's 3 solar farms. There's another one over in Waikato Redmond. Obviously close to where the national grid lines go through. So we're active in making sure that we've got long-term access there protected. I say we need to do that because the process of handing something back to a TA is long-winded. So what you need to do now is make sure as this comes along, there's access in perpetuity for either council to do it. So, that's the other thing. We are actually active in doing it. So for me, it's more about getting those relationships, having those meetings, talking to developers, not putting roadblocks in place, but, if you're helping them through the process, we're generally getting what we want out of it as well.
Just to add to that, the council has also asked staff to look at bylaws in relation to drainage. A lot of regional councils have it. More than 20 years ago, Central Waikato Drainage Subcommittee put through a resolution to ICM saying we recommend council puts in place bylaws in relation to land drainage and the likes. That was rejected at the time. Majority of council supported work progress in relation to this. There's some bylaws that we've looked at from other regional councils. Plenty's got a good one in my view. So also to support the likes of if all else fails, we've got to back some. At the moment, we've got not a lot of teeth in some of the areas, so it's work in progress as well.
I guess the other thing is that some of the TAs are putting in catchment management plans as well. So if they get in their catchment management plans in place, and a good example is Hamilton is doing that quite well around the Hauraki. So that's right on the boundary of the Waikato district. So if they put in their catchment management plan in place, then they're able to draw money from the developer for a future issue. So they can say it's partly, because then they've got the mechanism in place to actually draw the funds. So they can say to the developer, we think this is going to cause some issue with erosion in some of the downstream channels on the land drainage scheme outside of there. They can collect some funds for that. So it's about getting the TAs aligned with their planning as well, because you've got to have the tools to be able to, take the funds for future purpose. So definitely active, and it's got more active with fast track. And our Gordon team is two big retirement villages to go out there, and they affect our drainage schemes as well. So, we go right down to the level of these are the drains, these are the names, these are where we need the easements, this is where we need your setbacks. And try and get them in a draft consent condition before it goes into the funding process.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who to address the question to, so through you. With the fast track legislation, I understand that council's an affected party rather than a decision maker. As an affected party, there are costs associated with making a submission or making a contribution. Where do those costs sit? Because normally, if you're the decision maker, you can charge those to the applicant. But as an affected party, that ability may not be there. So does that fall on the targeted ratepayers or let's go?
So just as an example, so you're talking about we'll be making a submission to a fast track proposal. Yep. So I understand, say, for example, Rubik's raised some good examples about solar farms. At the moment, that would be the cost of the council to provide that submission to ensure that our views and our concerns are being heard. That's, I guess, more from a technical perspective, Ruben, but I guess as it goes up to a more policy, it goes through the full submission process, goes to the council. But yeah, as far as I guess from a funding point of view, for the interim, that's covered by the rate.
The general rate.
The general rate.
This is the general code. Yeah. So any submissions we make is comes out of the pool that it's coming out of the general rate.
And that's
right across the region.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
And it's not recovered from the applicant. Is that correct?
Depends on the, I understand you, Mr. Chairman, it depends on the, I guess, what's been submitted on and what the outcomes are. Formality there.
Thank you.
But the outcome it's coming by the general rate, it's all the council.
On chairs the strategy policy committee, which does all the submissions.
Karen, are you any your perspective, any submissions costs?
No.
We do accommodate that within our work program because it's important that we do have our voice, but as far as like recouping any costs externally.
No, we can't, not from the fast track situation, but accurately, it should be, is it costing airtime to the cost centre within council that is funded by the general rate. If we're involved, then it's not a land drainage cost, it's a general rate cost. So that's the best we can do at the moment.
Question. These are the actions from previous meeting. Will we have another meeting before the end of the meeting?
Yes.
August. Okay. So I just wondered, in that case, the issue that Donald's raised, the subcommittee thing, will that come back from what Democracy Services doing into here? Should this be an action that sits in here and it flipped over from the open minutes, 5.2. Subcommittee recommends ICM look at some additional 5.2. Because that wasn't picked up in the action subcommittee.
You're talking about the subcommittees.
Yeah.
If I could make a suggestion, Robbie, maybe it would be helpful if ICM comes back with 3, maybe 4 provisional dates going forward, which then would actually help when ICM hands over in the next triennium that, hey, there's some dates outlined, just to give a bit of certainty around that space and say, well, look, this is what they were discussing previous triennium through this subcommittee. So let's roll with it. It's easier to carry on with something that's already outlined rather than something that's not.
So it's more as placeholders.
Yeah, placeholder provisional dates, and then you've got them in a calendar moving forward.
2026.
Yeah,
If what we tend to do at the end of the year, so September-ish roughly, we start developing the calendar for the following year. How we try and schedule the meetings out is the path that reports and things will follow. So for example, if you have a meeting here and you make recommendations that go to catchment, we want a catchment meeting sitting behind this one for those to feed into without waiting 3 months, right? So we want to, and then likewise, we try and get those so then they don't hang about it. They have to go to council, that they can pull up to council without it being another 2 months. We try and be quite clever with, we can go from a meeting here, we can have a set of minutes, their catchment, and then 2 or 3 weeks after. We try and keep it all quite tight. And that's to try and alleviate that problem that things take months and months and months just to get to where they're going.
So it's really whether an action point is needed. So you're just meeting this committee years back. What is future?
Should we just,
Maybe action point. That's
Adam's just typing an action in now.
So we're just, so we're going to, work with Rob, see about earmarking for meeting dates for 2025, 26. That will include that informal one I talked about before, and confirm the meeting schedule at the next committee meeting in August.
Capturing the comments, the likes of Colin and others from Waikato and others around the table here have made in relation to the full meeting. So those comments will be put on alongside supporting those 4 dates.
If we can break the 5th, what we'll do is, through Mr. Chairman, put that in the issues and actions. We can come back with the staff comments and step with that from the feedback we've got today.
yes.
Does that sound?
Yeah, I think it's just a point of clarification. The previous meeting talked about an additional meeting, which would be 3. Maybe to go with ICM it needs to be 4, but I suspect we should talk about 3 or 4. So that the people at the time can decide what's appropriate, rather than locking in the 4. 3 might actually be better.
Or talk about like in terms of reference settings, at least per meeting, up to 4. Not up to 3.
Yes.
Take it up to 4.
Yep.
Yep.
And that could work, and it has been useful to actually get the committee in a vehicle and go and actually physically look at some of the flood protection. That maybe could be the 4th time.
No, it's fully like what you're saying there, Colin, because if we only got to look through the budget of what is actually spent on our flood protection and the representation we have around the table, it's fully required that we have engagement for you guys of how much money we're spending every year. And
it needs to be meaningful.
Yeah, and that needs to be meaningful in many ways. And like as we're sitting around the council table, like in the future, Waikato might lose 1 councillor. You've got all that capital investment is going into you, and you might only have 1 representative as council in the future. So it's more important that you guys are around the table and that's the thing that you're happy with that money getting spent every year.
And it's tens of millions.
That's it, yeah.
Tens of millions of targeted rates.
Yeah.
Targeted rate, not general rate, targeted.
So I fully support what you're saying, and like in the future, these flood protection committees are going to be more important, not less important, because otherwise your representation coming to council is going to become so small. So it's really important. So it's fully supported.
On another matter relating to these action points, if it's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Just it's noted for top of page 15. Concern was raised by a member of the impact of heavy traffic on the new stop bank. I think that's in with Roger Hunter. I remember being reasonably exercised about it.
There was a construction.
Yeah, but the comment is not necessarily indicative that the concern was taken on. Is my recollection, and it's now over, so how many months ago, was that the concern was more around the methodology of the construction. Which spoke to experience of the contractor, caliber of contractor, management of the project, and we all understand that sometimes things happen that are unavoidable, but the comment around road orbit wouldn't indicate to me that the staff or whoever's involved in allocating contracts or managing contracts really actually heard what the concern was, and that there might be thought given going forward to avoiding that sort of situation happening again. But I guess there's nothing more to take from it, but it's just a point of concern that, hey, there was a concern raised by a targeted ratepayer that appeared pretty genuine for most of the meeting, and there's not confidence from this comment that actually that was given the weight that it should have been. And I don't know, maybe Karen or Adam might recall, again, it's 6 months ago.
Can I just stop them? Sorry. Just, and Connell's correct in that, the action was that the trucking movements regarding the culvert was actually on Orongo Road, which we dealt with at the issue HTC. And what Roger did highlight was the impact on the stock banks, which is totally in between.
If I may clarify.
You go for it.
Post the collation of the actions, we did speak directly to Roger about what it was that he was concerned about. And even though it does talk to new stop banks, there was a conversation specifically about that culvert that he was most concerned about. And yes, in general, we talked about the activities on the stop bank and what phase of that project it was in, and how the traffic movements were being undertaken, what would happen post the completion of that piece of work. So in general, the conversation was broader than just what was noted here, but he really wanted it advised as to what was going on with that culvert. Hence, that's what we put in the agenda.
Thanks. We have a mover and a second agenda, please.
Second. Okay. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carries, thank you. Karen.
I'll just make thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll just make a few introductory comments and then I'll hand over to Karen, acting Hauraki Zone Manager, and then Ruben, a land drainage manager, just to present the report and to showcase a few projects, which is great. So yeah, this is our standard report updating the committee on our operational and capital work programs across flood protection, road management, and land drainage. Just
We go back.
sorry.
Can we go back because Ben is not actually a member?
Oh,
That's all right.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry, Ben.
So what had been done?
Ben was the mover of the, so that needs to be replaced. There right, Karen? Thank you. Sorry, Ben.
I've already. It's just come from a long way.
Good. If I was it next to me, maybe.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Karen. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Good.
Is everybody comfortable with me sitting here, or do I understand? It's up to you guys. I don't want to deal with it. I'll speak up, try and project a wee bit more. Okay, so what we have on pages 18 and 19 of the agenda is our financial summaries. Now, this summary represents the end of January position, the end of February. And I could note the conversations before about timely financial information. Was available 2 days ago, but of course we had a closed off agenda at that point in time. So what we're saying here for the Waikato scheme is that we recognise January as the 7th of 12 months of the year, which ultimately represents a percentage of 58 days of the year that we can, 58% of the year gone, that we should have been able to spend the money. But we have to be realistic and realise that our phasing isn't an even phasing cost of spend. There's a number of pieces of work that cost less that are done at the beginning of the year, so planning, investigation, things like that. And then the physical works will happen over the summer periods. That applies from an operational and a capital perspective. So even though we aren't fully expended for the period of time, it is very close in both summits. What is to be noted here was, again, we are having some challenges with how the new financial system works. And we did capture for a period of time at $130,000 in this operational spend, which should have been capitalised. So that has been moved in February. So you would see a change here if this was the February accounts. That was just we need to get the staff moving. We cannot wait on a code to be created in a financial system to allow us to do it. So it was a decision of mine, just get on and do it, and code we currently have, and then we'll go and fix it. So we have done that for both the way and Piako, so a pragmatic approach. In the Piako zone, that value went to $296,000. But what we can say from an operational perspective is, in capital, I suppose, in the long run, is that we've been very grateful for a nice, fine summer construction period. It's made a huge difference to the ability to achieve programs. It's actually been really good for people's emotional, timeframes as well, because we are applying a lot of pressure at the moment to achieve a lot of work, and being able to go out on a sunny day is way better than not. So if you had any help in giving us the final weather, we would appreciate that. In relation to the Piako zone, so we have a number of tasks that are operationalised. What we have there from a funding perspective, if you can see the table, the bottom line above total revenue states government grants. So that revenue is offsetting costs that we incurred on one of our capital projects that couldn't be capitalised. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the capital space. But ultimately, we did the whole project. It's the asset rationalisation one down in Piako. But ultimately, some of the money from the ministry was to go towards assets that are not our standard core assets, like a road. So even though we did the work, we then got ministry money to offset it. So hence it's represented here in your operational budget, not against their capital. That's a financial requirement. So hence why it's got cash, but no budget. It was just timing. If we can look over, I think the next few slides are all kind of activities that we undertake in the operational space. So a few examples of things that have happened since our last meeting. So major blockage on the Hinimuri River. So that work was undertaken by staff and contractors to remove that tree and to actually fell a couple of others that were having problems at the same time. So hence that comes into our operational space and the river management cost centre. We had worked with Department of Conservation and the biosecurity team to deal with pest plants. So this is in the ABCD flex block, which is part of the Piako scheme. They're castellations, which are the formation of the edge of the block to allow water out into this grass growing on them that we had to deal with. Really an option. So this was our staff working with contractors again. What was special about this was because it was a piece of plant, we had to dig holes, bury it at least a half a metre below the surface. And we had to do a whole lot of work around cleaning the machine, moving from site to site. And we were, or should I say, some staff were clever enough to say, well, let's use a long reach digger. So we'll be doing this cleaning the bucket and clean the actual machine because the machine is not in the site of the. So yeah, working across council and teams to achieve a result in the piaka. Next slide is, these next few slides are about our structural audit program. This is a large program of work that happens annually where we have identified through our condition performance inspections assets that need a deep dive, literally go and see what's going on with these assets. So we undertake this work with as a program, so identify all the sites that we need to do for the year, and it could be in the lower Waikato or in the area. We engage the contractors, tender process, engage particular contractors we want, and we go and do site by site by site. Again, video, photography, site measurements. We have to do a lot of work at each site. So this is an example of one that was done on the Matatoki floodgate. So you can see it's kind of a busy site. A lot of health and safety undertaken at each site that we're working on these. The next slide, please. This is another example where it's a little bit smaller site, but the use of fall protection, working with the design of the original access way enabled us to use a ladder in a safe way instead of having to climb over structures to get down into the hole. They were able to do this in a far safer manner. So that's just a prime example of standard stuff that staff are doing all the time. Then next one, that particular floodgate. Here's an example of where joint has moved on the floodgate between the two pieces. So that'll be analysed with some video footage, etc. And we'll figure out what to do about that in the next few months. So that's just some prime examples of things like we did 8 particular sites in the Hauraki, and Piaka might have had 10 this year. So the Waikato might have 10 this year. So all of that takes a fair bit of time and effort. Their staff. Next slide. So we've got a report on today's agenda that talks specifically about the lease review and the agreement or changes to that. This here is just a summary about some of our scheme land activities that are happening annually. So we have a scheme land staff member. Sarah Muir apologises she couldn't be here today to present some of this information, but she would like to come along and meet the committee at the next meeting. This is just an opportunity to talk to what we understand is our current level of defects. So over the summer period, we go and we check all our leased land and our own Waikato Regional Council land that's not leased, and we understand what defects there are, what types of defects they are in particular, and work with the lessees to resolve those, and in their own instances, program that we can get it done.
Yes, can I answer your question? What's the difference between WRC not leased land and not used?
Okay, so not every piece of scheme owns land, it's leased out to a leasing. So we have quite a bit of land that's as we are fixing at the moment. And that is part of the process that we're looking into. We've got opportunities that we're not currently taking. Balanced with the principles of why we lease land and what we don't.
We're cutting carrying off several spots now ourselves for material to put on stock banks when we're redoing, just to blow hay and stuff on stock banks and on erosion and stuff.
It's quite not so much the leasing or not leasing, that's what are we doing with it. If no one's using it or something, it's what is WRC doing with it, that becomes what's surplus land.
Well, in a sense, but it could be the stock bank itself, and we're not allowing the stock bank to be leased. The firm and land side room could be.
I think the language needs to be correct, so you don't get someone like me asking.
And this slide also helps us to understand that having a full-time land management officer, you're actually getting some headway into these overall defects. So the graph to the right shows you that over the last 3 years, we've decreased down to less than 180 defects across all our land at the moment. And I can confirm that's actually less now than that because we've had a number on our foreshore stock bank, construction just about finished there, and they can be completed and closed out as well. So in general, that just gives you an indication of type of work that we do. Now this slide just really talks to what is it that our staff is undertaking for the next, focus for the next few months. So it's working with those long-standing leases who have defects that have been there for a while. I know for a fact she rings people regularly, so yes, be good at following up. Deal with those that are on our own land, where we are the principal owner and responsible for those. And a lot of those aren't, they're not animal related. They're things like where we've done works and there may have been a crack or something appear and that needs to go back and be resolved. There's other reasons for it other than animals. We've got some fencing around a couple of wetlands we want to fence off to help exclude stock. We've got winter inspections that, when we've had issues, we want to go back and look at them in winter, sure they've been dealt with properly. And again, looking at a plan for what we can do with their own land that's not currently in the list. So it's a busy time. It's all part of our flood protection category of expenditure. So next slide, it's not really actually well. So the next section we want to discuss is the capital work program. We've talked about regular maintenance and stuff that happens all the time. And this is more specified to particular projects on an annual basis. So in the Waikato, we have the Karakia Stream Stop Bank being upgraded right now. So if you've driven along State Highway, you would have seen a lot of management there, a lot of work going on. That project is nearing completion. It's one true left bank is completed, the true right's more than halfway done. So we're expecting that to be completed by the end of this month. We have stocks, pump station, switchboard and control upgrades. So that is just about nearing completion. You may, if you're on Facebook, see LinkedIn posts from the contractor on that. They just asked for permission to do that the other day. We like to support people, who've done a good job, like, the brag about it a bit, I suppose. Generator replacement. This is an investigation. I raised this at their last meeting about when we've had issues with the generator that supports the Roger Harris pump station. Got a temporary solution in place there at the moment, but of course we have 6 generators at 5 sites and we're getting to an age where we need to look at what's next these sites. So this is an investigation and understanding what our options are. So we're working with experts in that space. So more of that will come in the early parts of next financial year, and we actually have an understanding of options for us. Again, we're having to be really open about and transparent about what we're doing. So we're looking at all sorts of options and just building them out at the moment about what should we be looking at. And then we have one of the other major projects is we're still investigating the Cox floodgate to go towards a construction project in next year. So at the moment, when we talk about dollars and cents, we are more than 30% or 33% spent in this place. But it's to the end of January. We've got a lot of bills that will come in February. I had a quick look yesterday at the totals, and we're close to 50% spent now at the end of February, which is expected. Yeah, so the program is on track. There's no concerns from my perspective of what's happening with the Waikato.
The generators, will be partially funded by, if we buy generators, be partially funded by the deluge funding that I think.
Yes, so, yeah, thank you for reminding me. So the next tranche of, regional infrastructure fund applications for climate resilience program of works. We've packaged up 2 major pieces of work in that area for application. So the generators is one of those. So we're talking several $1 million worth of generators currently in place that we have to replace them with something. So that's one of the projects. The other one is in the Piako. So when we get to the capital discussion in a moment in the Piako, I'll identify that for you as well. So next we have a few photographs. So this is the Roger Harris pump station. We talked about the interim generator replacement option that we've got in place there. And this is core BAU work for us. You know, taking pumps in and out, renewing them, electrical work, whatever works they have needed. This is core work for our staff. Overhauling. So next slide, please. This is the Karakia stream stop bank. So that right bank tied into the Hauraki rail trail. So it's from that point towards us that is about to start now and be completed again this month. I think I've got another photograph of that there. Yes, so yeah, that kind of gives you a bit more feel for the height. Some of those photographs. So the stripping of the bank on the left and the completed section on the right. Feel for the height. Is there any more? Okay, yeah, Captain Cook floodgate erosion work. So a lot of this work's undertaken by our staff with a contractor with a piece of machinery, pushing in the gun poles, or in this case, some of them are old power poles. So hence what it was on the left, it is on the right hand, tidy up. Takaki floodgate, another example of different type of erosion management. Yes, rock, placement, but an example previous to you. Okay. And the very central floodgate, another example, slightly different. We've got the wing walls being replaced here by air staff. Some support, which is BAU. We air guys do every day of the week. So, any questions on the Waikato before we get into the Piako?
Just in range of license defaults, really heartening to see progress being made, and I think the team should be something the committee's been concerned about in the past. Great to see great progress being made.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Sarah. She did a lot of good work. Piako Capital Program, we 31% spent there. When looking at the results for the end of February yesterday, I think it was 42% spent. Major projects for us here. Is the completion. So we had our opening of the Piako Asset Rationalisation Project a few months ago, but acknowledging the project closure takes a little bit of time. You've got a defects liability period with your contractors. You've got things to be resolved before they can fully be closed out. So that's what's been the hangover into this year. We do have a couple of defects that are being worked on there, which are just minor things in comparison with the entire project. We have the completion of the foreshore stock bank upgrade. So thank goodness for the first year out of 4 that hasn't rained. So we've been able to pretty much get completion of that project. Contractor's got less than a kilometre to go as of a couple of days ago. Expecting to be finished the next couple of weeks. And that's a huge piece of work from this perspective. And we've very lucky that he's been such a good contractor to work with over the horrendous weather we've had the past few seasons. So then we have Reservoir Canal Pump Station, the upgrade and a bit of work around making the tank pump starts. That has almost finished now. A little bit more work to go on that, but we've got all the bills in for that. The Lower Piako right bank, stop bank berm I&D, which is the second to the right. That's our other project that we're putting up for funding application to the ministry. The reason we're doing that is that we have estimated the cost of that between $7 and $10 million. And it is a major piece of work identifying opportunities for resolving the stopping challenges around berm size and availability and sustainability of the structure between State Highway 2 at Ngatea and the Piparoa town right bank. So the inside, not the town side stopping. So we're looking for, at the moment, through investigation and design, looking at our options. Well, if you're in the area, you've possibly seen some bigger staff out there doing geotechnical work and surveys at the moment.
Could you please explain, is it for the doomsday if we're going to be flooded under or something? What are you thinking? Like some of these, what's
There are some low points in that bank, but it's more around the stability of the bank. In fact, the berm is continually getting eaten away on stretches of the river. And then if we lose the berm, eventually we'll lose the bank. So it's about what's best to do in these locations. Watching what type of soils we've got, how the river behaves. Some of it will be. Now we know some of it will be moving the banks back.
one question on the Makura at the moment? We're taking the dirt from Makura, putting on shovel-ready projects. This material is we've as ratepayers have paid for it, targeted ratepayers. Is this soil sitting there now and more coming out? Wouldn't it be sense to use that for what you're talking about? Somewhere in that sort of situation, plus other construction sort of being aid going out outside our district, be used by the projects.
So what we have, or the process that we use, is we have a material strategy. So we undertake a knowledge of where all our either river digs or sediment trap digs and material sitting drying. We know where that is plus. We try to, whenever we're planning a project, to use the closest material, saves on traffic control and traffic management situations. In instances where, so maybe I can explain how the costs work. So when we dig the material, we place it, we acknowledge the geo's location, where it is and quantities. That contractor gets paid for doing this job, but we cost it into a stock account for council. So we have a stock account that says we've got 80,000 cubic metres of material sitting in various places. Then we identify the project that we need to go and undertake, and that project might need 50,000 cubic. So we then transfer 50,000 cubic worth of cost to the project that's getting upgraded. So we don't, nobody's paying for material that shouldn't be paying for material. And we end up with trying to utilise the material in the most likely local location for the project. We don't try and truck it unless we have to. Does that make sense? That's our general strategy for use of material.
So there's no depreciation on that until it's actually put into a physical form.
That's right. Yeah. So it goes into stock. When it gets placed on the asset, those costs are then capitalised. And that's when the asset becomes bigger, it then gets depreciated at a higher rate, and then that money's there. But the next time we need to review that asset.
If I may, Jim, what with the local materials along that stock bank, how much of that available material is going to be hard-wearing enough to prevent erosion or protect the bank from erosion? And is there sense in using a more hard-wearing material sourced elsewhere? Just thinking if you've got millions and millions of cubic meters a day running against this berm and this bank, and you're putting something softer material onto it, you pack it down fairly hard, I'm sure. But is that going to be a viable solution if you get 1 in 100 flood event or 1 in 1,000 flood event? Is that going to hold strong enough in the long term?
Well, I can advise that through our investigation design process, we do a huge amount of geotechnical information, surveys and analysis. So we know it's not so much about is the soil going to hold up, it's about can the soil underneath hold the stock bank up as well, so it doesn't just disappear into the ground because it's too heavy. So putting, say, a huge clay stock bank on top of our marine soils in the southern Piako would be a big no-no. That would just disappear.
I appreciate that. I'm thinking for the whole structure.
Yeah.
As a respect for the whole structure, is there something that might be better suited?
Well, we design them in such a way that the water just goes past. It shouldn't erode, but it's taking the berm of the river up to the stock bank, and that's causing the problem. It's like, do we just fill the berm back up, or do we just move the stock bank away further? So that's some of the major questions we've got, and it's specific to the lower tidal reaches. It doesn't happen in other parts of the region. So it's a challenge that we're working on. It's been here forever. It is something that has a lot to do with how the rivers behave and how they clean themselves out with floods and not so much other times of the year and build up sediment loads. So all of that gets packaged up in our investigation design project. Hence, it's a little bit costly. It seems like not a great way to spend your money, but again, we need that information to provide us with the best information to make the best decisions about what options we have.
And
maybe this is an opportunity for a field trip.
Yeah, it is something for some people here that asked. I think it relates to the Piako more than the Waihau. The Waihau banks are set back more, so we have a lot more channel erosion issues with the Piako scheme than the Waihau. And we have also had stabilisation of the true right or the true left in Ngātia?
Yeah, true left.
True left. Of bank, because it's very close to the river there, that we've got sheet piling in front of it, and then we've had to assess or geotech how to reconstruct the boom, because it's the more we play with it, then the worse it wants to fall in as well in the past. So we've had to well, Jody was a part of all that, of how the work program and how to deal with subsidence and the boom, and then the danger that puts for a stock bank. So I think we're really good in that space. We've worked and developed a program of how to deal with that. It's just when it's if it's in a rural area, it's a lot easier just to move the bank back. But if it's in an urbanisation like in Ngātia, you have to take a hard line. You're going to move the town, or you're going to move the bank. You've got to move the town. So it becomes a lot more difficult. So was it quite a bit easier to stabilise the bank there than it was to stabilise the boom than it was to move the bank back? So I think, does that clarify?
It's kind of a watch this space for this one. There will be some more information coming up next 3 months.
And I was just going to say, the member, that's one, if we ever do a field trip, we've got to go to the restoration at Shelley Beach to see how, and I'm not saying got to be clear what I see here. When full tide water goes into that asset and what water comes out is quite unbelievable. You wouldn't believe your eyes of the silt that's left behind. You see this murky brown coloured water going in there from the silt that's in the river. And when it's leaving, it's transparent. You can see the bottom of the outlet. So it's quite amazing. So if we do a field trip you've been there, Connell, you've seen it. It's quite amazing. And what we've designed there is very cool. Yeah. So I'll carry on. Just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. So then I think we have a few photographs next of some of these projects. So here's a reservoir. Electrical upgrade, so new switchboard, etc. A huge health and safety benefit in that particular location. Asset rationalisation. So these were only taken yesterday. So this is, with the declaration of drought for the Waikato area, I was interested to just see what was going on at this site. So as of yesterday, still functioning really well. And plenty of water in the pond, which was designed to support drought management for the area. So it's deep enough that any local fish, tuna, etc. can come here and be fine while, there's low water levels in the system. Good to see. The next view, this is the foreshore stock bank. This is looking west. Just about completed, and the next slide I think is looking east. So some nice drone photography undertaken there, but yeah, look how dry the area is. So good to know that we've done more than 15 kilometres of stock bank. It's just about finishing. Next slide is our proposed next asset rationalisation area. So this is just being investigated at the moment. This is the other side of the Piaka River. So just as an example, this is a very narrow, long piece of the foreshore, and we're looking at options around resolving the fact that we have 2 floodgates and a pump station in this area. 2 floodgates need replaced, and the pump station has some challenges around outlet pipes. So, looking at a whole of the catchment, not just individual assets one at a time. So this will become probably next year's big project. Next slide, please. So from a local perspective, so it happened at the Waikato North pump station, it was replaced. So that was done earlier this year. For prevention works, you will possibly have heard the words, the ACI program work that Council's been undertaking, and ACI standing for Annual Conditional Inspections, undertaken, of which we end up with a list of things that may need resolving. Some of that's particularly around health and safety. This one is for protection upgrade at the site. So it's been quite a list of work that's been undertaken in this space across both air zones and in the lower Waikato. And I think that's all I've got from a purely operational and capital program for the Waikato Piaka. Is there any questions before I move on to?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, just on the fall protection. Are these areas open to the public?
On our land, which is theoretically not open to the public, but yes, people will go there without permission at times.
Okay, and what are you doing to sort of find a balance between making it easy for your staff and your team to access and do the things you need to do, and also protect the public who may have inadvertently strayed onto the land?
So there's legislation we need to follow.
Of course.
But we are trying to be sensible that we have a similar like design and similar like locations so that we don't have lots of different ways to access stuff. So that, staff can be, comfortable that they understand an area. And to be honest, there's a lot of money spent on health and safety upgrades, of which fall prevention is one. And to be honest, we're doing the best we can, as fast as we can, to make sure that we're safe. There are lots of different standard designs that we're operating under. That's pretty much the answer to your question. It's site specific, but it's standard.
Thank you. Well, if I could just add, one of the things that we had this presentation a couple of weeks back, and one of the things that was noted that for keeping the costs down, our staff are actually installing most of this now. It's all bolted together. So you're not doing the contractors on that sort of thing. That's something, and then the designs stay fairly similar. So it means it's actually quite easy to put together and put in place.
Yeah, I assume it was noted that while you can walk down those steps and be protected, you can also a couple of metres to the side, walk to the bank and fall in and down as well. So, how much do you do?
Natural selection.
Well, just very much. Add that through the chair. Some of this improvements are about improvements for our guys as well.
Yeah.
So when they're routinely working there, they're protected and have some full prevention. So it's not just public backyard, but it's also making sure the routine work our guys have got a safe place. So they just exciting.
Yeah, Robbie noted turning up there on one dark, wet, stormy night, sliding down the bank.
Yeah. So we don't mind doing this. We actually want to do it. It's just a bit more than we can cope with at the moment. So there's a bit of a backlog.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Well, yes, through the chair again, there is what the important thing is that there is a program in place and that the guys are delivering on in a scheduled manner.
I think and yet there is assets that take priority, I suppose, pump stations.
Urban areas.
Yeah.
And close to an urban area.
There is, so it comes down to where it fits in the program and the safety rating it requires. So sometimes you might see the ones in the field getting done quite as quickly, but they are just as important. It's just there's other reasonings behind it. But yeah, as Warren said, the biggest thing with this is it's most likely going to get used on a warm, rainy stormy night, and you expect someone to be sliding down a stock bank without and if it's not like that, there's going to have to be two people there as a safety advisor. So you got to make it safe that at least one person could be investigating. Yeah, so that's the sort of scenario you're working at. So thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hard act to follow. Such a great report. Thank you, Karen. Yes, I guess if you know me, what I like to do is just remind ourselves a bit about what land drainage is about and how significant it is. And I like to get it in these committee notes and presentations because these are read by other people as well. Quite often we're here and we understand it, but other people in councils and public that get hold of these need to just understand what they mean to us, So, regionally significant land drainage is, 250,000 hectares that benefit from 7% of that area. And, it's about $17 billion in 2019, so there's more costs there as well. The size of our regional network is we've got 1,500 kilometres of drains, 1,500 kilometres of drains, 2,063 kilometres in total length, 84 separate funding mechanisms of 90 drainage areas and 92 funding mechanisms. So it's a complex beast. Land drainage is a complex beast, and quite often it's not seen for that. But it's a big sexy beast in terms of that. Thames Valley itself's got 505 separate drains, 760 kilometres of 9 drainage subdivisions. So there's a lot of work that goes from there. It's important to meet our land drainage standards so that we can continue to fund. That's really just to remind people of that, and you probably will know. But I still like to keep that at the forefront for our guys and our teams as well, so they can see the importance of it. Our guys on the ground know know what the size of the job is really. Because people ask them, what do they do? And they don't think they just say land maintenance now, they say, actually, well, we do this, and that. And then sometimes I'll ask them, well, what do you do? Yeah, so they definitely put it.
Since being in council, Ruben, I'd have to definitely say you've definitely outspoken of what the economic wealth that these drainage areas bring into the council in the Waikato region. So I think you definitely promote that really well. Thank you.
Well, for me, it comes down to funding as well, about this information is needed to support funding mechanisms. And the more that we land at Farm Gate, the harder it is to fund. So, when we talk regional and national significance, you go to talk national funding at some of these levels, especially when you're talking to the 50 to 80 year capital projects that we've got. You can't land it at the front gate. That's thinking's got to change. And the council's, pushing that through those funding mechanisms in there. Okay, so we're about, as Karen said, we're 7/12 of the way through the year. Across the schemes, we're sitting at about 50% spend. In Thames Valley, we're sitting at 45% spend at the moment. And that's probably because it's been a bit dry. So we're going to have to do some more spraying. Some spraying's been a bit delayed because there's no growth yet. If we spray now, we're going to have to spray again. And so that's sort of across that area. So next slide, thanks. So that's the budget position for Thames Valley across all of the subdivisions. So we're sitting at about 58% spend at 31st of January. So that's about where we should be sitting at that time. And I guess overall, the drainage program's on track for the operational year. Because the other thing you'll remember from that last meeting, we had Ian retired. I think it was that last meeting, Ian ran for a couple of meetings ago now. So Keith and Nicole have picked up the reins quite well. They've been developing their relationships with the landowners, and the teams have been doing the same. So I think the interaction between the landowners out there who inform us a lot on what work we need to do out there is working well. So I say that we're sitting at 58%, getting some good feedback from landowners out there, and the guys are doing the work that needs to be done. This is the key thing. If we target on spraying the entire network, then including about 10% of the network on machine cleaning per year is the sort of target that we do. That doesn't mean cleaning it, it means inspecting 10% of it, cleaning 10% of that we need. And then allowing some areas where we do need to do maybe multiple clean or a bit more of a clean at some time. But yes, so next slide, thanks. Yes, so this is just a bit of a process really on on the metrics of the guys out in the field. So they've sprayed 7 subdivisions. We've got 2 subdivisions to go. There'll be some respraying amongst that as well. And we get feedback from landowners saying, well, it's too early to spray here, come back and spray later, or if their contractors come through and we've had some regrowth. Some of those instances we'll get some respray done by ourselves, by our own guys. But it has been, dry conditions out there. It's been dry and windy actually, so. Now I take my hat off to the team because in dry conditions you can do a lot of spraying. It's a lot of time out in the sun. So they're making sure they're getting their electrolytes up, and they come in some days and I've been over there, they look frazzled. But they've got long sleeve shirts on, so they're keeping them out of the sun. They've got sun hats on, sun in motion, but the heat exhaustion I think is it's quite it's quite close for some of the teams. So we make sure they get electrolytes out, and I know the key chemicals will take out can the coke and everything that's been around the sites, and just giving them some support. So machine cleaning, we're active across the area. That's a great showing about where we've been machine cleaning and how much. And it's been good support from the members, I guess, in terms of that. In some areas we've been identified that this hasn't actually been cleaned for a while, so there's a bit of effort coming in some of the well. And then I think we do that, and we look at what the network looks like and see where it relates, and then we can come back and do it. So I'm trying to get the teams to run with a bit of a contingency budget. So that if there is work that we need to do that's not planned, there isn't a bit of poor money sitting here that we can do different use. But yes, the teams are working. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got the Thames Valley Drainage Planning Project. This was one that we funded out of Carnos. I think it was out of Beyond the Delegate funded.
Yes.
Where there was some idea that some of the trial drain plans we've done in the past could inform and help us reduce maintenance in the future. So we requested that $1.8 million out of Carnos, just about 1.2 from the government, about 700,000 from us, to be done across 3 years. And it was really to help with channel maintenance, reshaping, and reduce maintenance, but also help with flood protection in the estate. We've got that over the 3 years. Like I say, it's got some fencing, drain shaping, planting to reduce maintenance, but also to put that in a situation where we do have to go and maintain, we can still get. There's been a lot of interest in it in the area, and we've sort of secured landowners, and we're in the process of signing up landowners for their responsibilities. I'm getting some drain shaping, cleaning done, and some planting done this year. So it really is about 10% of the project this year. But what we're doing is that where we need to do some drain cleaning, and if it's in the same area, we'll do drain cleaning and shaping from our general businesses' usual work, then that can be allocated as our in-kind funding towards the counter. And then we're also going to the landowners and say, can you do the weed spraying, replace and put up fencing? So again, there's a cost that we can put against there with the landowner has some contribution. And that might be in time and materials. Yes, so it's looking like it's going to be a great project actually. Nicole and Keith are pretty keen on. And there's some work through the CMOs, which are Catchment Management Officers. So it's a good team project for the council to interact at different levels across that to be involved in them. So again, there's a bit of variety of work for the guys, but the good bit of me is that it's very interactive with our landowners. So every time we get the chance to be out there interacting with our farmers and doing things that are innovative, a little bit of research and development, which I know Rolly and Noel have been pushing, this fits in that same pocket. So this, I think it's like 10% of the project this year, 40% next year, 50% the year after. And we have to report on this project back to Carmel to secure funding. So yes. So key issues, we talked about urbanisation. And again, for me, the key thing around this is to be active, is actually to be active in it now. And we possibly haven't been as active as we could be in the past, but we're now talking with the district councils and that regularly. And as soon as they've got something coming across their desk, they'll shoot it to us, because it helps them with their process as well. So sometimes they're the ones that are doing plan change or control of changing what the land use is. So we've got to be effective at that. And then we've also got Michelle White in our team, who sits as part of ICM. She looks at all the things that we need to be putting submissions on from central government like that down to local. So we capture certain things on the consent process there. On the subdivision process, we kept that sheet up from direct interaction with the developers. And our guys out in the field will see it as well. And then we also capture it via the fast track process now. So we're getting involved in those all sort of levels, and it takes a bit of time, but yeah, we're ready to be in there now right at the start and really letting them know positively and practically what we need. Because I find with the consultants that are doing a lot of this work for fast track for consents in their planning spaces, they want to get something from us that they can put in a consent condition, and we can help them with that. So we're seeing that coming to our issues and our ability to interact is improved, but also the outcomes. So that's my positive. Like I say, there's mechanisms within the local government now we can transfer urban areas back to the PAs, but they don't have to take it. they don't have to take these areas back. So it's got to be a little bit around relationship and what's sensible as well. I mean, if you went right through the process and you had all support of the locals up to 51% across the whole area, then you're in a different more steady process will carry through. But that's long-winded. I mean, with so much development on now, you've got to have a short game and a long game. So we're into both. Self-administration, I put that in there because it's a bigger issue in Waikato. And there's a few areas over there looking at self-administration, which would mean that we collect the rates, we give them the rates, and they deliver the work, and they deliver it as we were going to be doing. So what they're looking for is a saving in management costs, basically. But if they're drain cleaning, they use a certified contractor. If the weed spraying, they need a certified contractor. So just to put that there, we do an annual funds transfer to those things, and then we also follow up on where they're getting and ask for their spray plans, what sprays have been used, what contractors have been used. And highlighted a couple of non-compliances. They've been raised with those teams over there, and now they're dealing with that. Either getting themselves certified or they're moving to use certified contractors. So that was really just to say that we're active in that space. If you're considering this area, there is the ability to go self-administer and the ability to go privatised, which sits within that eligibility process as well. But the bigger your subdivision, the more complex it is. Council pretty good at delivering those services. So it's more targeted at smaller subdivisions, I'd say. But it is policy was drafted around everyone can be considered against a certain statistics. Okay, so here's some pictures of some of the work we've been doing. So that was in the solar farm towards the Te Aroha West. The actual increased size of the extension of solar farms across the road. So these are our drains that we're going through there. So we agreed with them that we go through, clean them out, get the plantings in place and get the plantings in a way that's if we had to go through, we can drive over it and help it down. Or we can lift over and scrape out. So it's been a good relationship with those developers. Yes, next one, please. There's just some pictures of the guys. So that, that's I guess what they do is when they're going up to do a clean, they need to know. The clean is not about, as you know, not about deepening or lowering the inverts of the channels. It's more just about removing the silt. So often they'll go through and check and make sure that we're not deepening, because that can cause some erosion back through those. So just to show that. And there's some machine cleaning examples of where we're going through and cleaning up the channels and keeping them open and flowing. Next one. And of course, the team also has to deal with lots of things that end up in drainage channels. I know that Kenny and they were out the other day removing a couple of cows that had fallen in the drain, gates of Waikato or something. So there's just this sort of work that gets done as well, placed by the teams. And I think the other thing we've done this year too is to try and get a bit of variety of work into the guys. It also increases their skill level. So, if we want someone to spray all day, then they've got to have some other work as well. So where there's an opportunity to go and help one of the CMOs and some work, or they're doing some work on floodgates and this and that, we give them. So the guys, I think, the team are generally happier with the more range of work, but also their school work is coming up. So they're enjoying it.
And we need that for resilient weather conditions as well. That's the bigger thing, that our key staff get burnt out because they're working long hours and there's no one. We can't bring to comply with our health and safety. It's very hard for someone else to come out from outside the organisation to help in that space. So it's actually been a development of council that we must develop more people to take on other roles in the state times of emergency or disaster, that Kenny and my guys are in the field hard out can have some time to themselves, because I think during Gabriel, Kenny might have worked 3 weeks pretty much non-stop. So that becomes a real issue of his own health when you're doing that sort of, and then he got struck with a medical condition in that time, and he was pretty much stuffed, you know, so we've in council ourselves, we know we've got to do better. I think it's come up through, but it came up through, emergency planning, that we had to do way better in that space, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that helps around preparedness, you know, and so there's a couple of things to get, the guys get a better variety of work. They're more interested in work, they're engaged, and you know, sort of having a well-grounded workforce. Which means actually we have a stable workforce as well.
Their succession.
Okay, so just some clearance of the roads drains, so just showing work again that the guys, the teams will be doing. And I think this is just looking at where we will be doing some of the invalid and drainage findings. And so we explain potentially a shape and lay that at the banks and then plant it go. I think that's for me. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested in the impacts. I've got two questions. I'm interested in the impacts of the solar farms on the hydrology and speed of runoff. What advice can you have, and what do you know about the way that instead of falling onto, I presume it's pasture, it's going to fall onto glass, concentrate up, and run off and hit the ground. But what difference does that make?
Yeah, from the because they do a lot of technical reporting around hydrology for sure. So that issue has been raised around the place. But from what I was reading and looking at what they've been saying is that the configuration of the panels, and that there's still enough contact with earth for the reasonable infiltration through those areas. So I guess it's slightly different to having in urban where you've got a lot of house roofs and house roofs dump into the stormwater system, and then have to tank that all dumps it out to the main street. And you've really got not much infiltration at all. So yeah, so in terms of that, I don't, that's sort of looked at the 10-year flow and 100-year flows that we're looking at. And talking with the guys that have looked at some of those, there doesn't seem to be too many issues with that. I guess the other issue too is that quite often, and I know the ones over around the brewery, which is sitting in some of the schemes there, they're covering landowners that inside that scheme. If they have a flooding issue, they're going to flood themselves. Yeah, so that's a sort of infiltration. So it depends on where they are in the catchment. A lot of them are on the flat land and towards the bottom of the catchment. So they cause a drainage issue. So they do put a lot of effort into that, because that's questions definitely that the regional use, the resource users group. It's from a technical perspective.
And in terms of if they are in the floodplain, presumably they're up on some kind of they're elevated. Is there any risk that they would be impacted by debris and create a debris field downstream that it will be someone's responsibility, so they're not be taken the ratepayers to clean up?
It's probably, and I mean, that's a good question. If we were undertaking a maintenance, and one of the things that I've been pushing for is that we have easements through this farm or access so we can undertake our routine maintenance, then there should be no more issues than what we normally get. The gates are, most of them are sort of like terminals up the ground, and they're designed to be out of the flood zones. So they've done their hydrology and they're designed to be outside, above the 100-year floods with a bit of freedom. The other things they do is they like to put trenches around big underground drains and different things. So I've spoken to them about how deep they need to be, and need to be marked so that we've got a levy there. But there's in any of those things in huge floods, you're not quite sure what's going to happen, but most of those things will be affecting their own infrastructure. So they're generally pretty much looking at protection, so.
So my next questions to you, Mr. Chair. I heard a comment about training their staff so that they've got that broader skill base for emergencies. I'm a little bit concerned that I can see how it would be helpful to be able to bring additional people on board in emergency situations. And I'd just like to understand what the rationale behind not pursuing that at this stage is.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, because you've brought it up with me in the past where you offered in Gabriel your time to council, and I took that degree. So I think it'd be better that it comes from you, Adam, why that would be the process.
Well, yes, Mr. Chairman. So I guess if we're talking particularly around how we number of resources up for emergency response, folks rotate through the teams because, like Ruben said, we're only so deep, and so when Gabriel we had. During all those cyclones, we had Cook, Tasman Tempest was another one. We had about 3 months that were in response mode, and that did take its toll. So we have looked at, so at the moment, we're currently reviewing our flood response menu. So it's the local one, the People's Regional Response Menu that we're leaving, sort of overseas. And part of that is to look at, well, how deep, what are the teams having a roster in place, so we, and obviously we don't know all the scenarios, so we plan generally across. But look, if it means that, we need to bring in, I think what Ruben was referring to was bringing in externals. Remembering it's not just health and safety today, also get the knowledge of the schemes, and that's really, really important too. And so what we can do is that if Lower Waikato, for example, isn't affected, we can bring in our operational teams from Lower Waikato and work off the back because they generally have an understanding of what the scheme assets are about. They're already sort of covered under the health and safety because they're already part of the WRC environment. Where we have both zones, and we did Gabriel, both zones, I guess, triggered or emergency response, I guess we have to rely on, teams from other areas, regional council. It doesn't mean we don't have to use externals, but we might use them more in an advisory capacity to help with some of the emergency response within the office rather than the field. So there's 2 different aspects to that.
Yeah, I was thinking that, there is a wealth of experience in the schemes around this day of the year and more out in the field as well. And I do wonder whether something would increase the level of engagement, between council and the board community and the people that are protected by the assets. An extension of what Conal was asking earlier on. And what's the scheme? And when push comes to shove, when it's absolutely buffeting down and water everywhere, that's when people really see the value of it. So would it benefit to have them on board and help them, for a day or a couple of days? I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, that's something we could consider. The other one I did forget to mention is that I think, Karen, we have a MOU with river managers and an agreement across regional councils that if one region is underpumped, so they unintended, the other region isn't, they're under sunshine, they can see it freeze up. And so we can actually resource up. So Bay Plenty Creek come over here and help us out. We could go over there and help them out. So we have that internal set that network support as well.
And that's what happened during after Gabriel when Kenny and Desan went down and helped assess in the Hawke's Bay all the damage down there and the remedial work that was required to bring that back up. They it's about 2 weeks, helping out.
And we also have agreements with contractors as well. So, I guess cleaning and all that we might need, like contractors help us out with the mechanical side of things as well. So, and much of what we did in Gabriel. So there are mechanisms already in place, but we're more than happy to look at other ways to cement and I guess shore up our ability to respond. But that's thanks for raising it.
I guess to support that through the chair, I mean, the process again, we've just been declared a drought. So regional council has enacted the first part of the emergency response system, which says that the emergency leaders come together and say, do we need to start looking at drawing resources from within the council? No, we don't at the moment, but it's already in the minds that we might have to if this escalates to the next stage. So some of it's about the earlier you get into these processes, the better you can respond as well. Because people getting ready for it now.
Well, you look at, I know it's out of our remit, but you've only got to look to see what, out Port Waikato with the fire, they had 7 fires within a week, and then we had a fire on Pride of Huna Road the other day, and it must have been someone just threw a cigarette butt out, and about half a kilometre of Pride of Huna Road got burned completely off. So, you know, we think that that's only flood protection at times, but there's actually a lot of other things that can just affect the environment just as quickly in these dry conditions, and we all haven't seen mostly a large fire for a long time around here, but it could well easily happen with a warm westerly and the right conditions. You could blow across the Hauraki Plains or around over the Manawatu Piako quite quickly if we're not careful. Yeah, so yeah.
If I can add, Robbie, too, as governance, we're getting a number of papers coming to us through civil defence, through the learnings that happen down in the Bay of Plenty and all that sort of thing, with the prosecutions of regional council down there, just the learnings that are coming out of these extreme events and what's going on there, so and what we can do with our processes and how that also sort of falls into your topic about bringing in other organisations and other experience to help us through those things. So all that's being looked at the moment as we progress through various extremes.
Also, what came out of Hawke's Bay, that local work needs to be assessed by the local crew, and if it needs to be done, it gets done. It doesn't actually have to go to head office. That was a part of the problem at Wairau with the river mouth, that the local working team didn't have the right to clean the river mouth. It had to be approved by head office in Hawke's Bay. So we're going through all that assessment at the moment as well, that when things need doing, do they need actually just general work to just get on with it? So I think some of those, yeah, we're going through all those learnings at the moment, as Warren just said. You have any questions? Yes.
You just while you're talking on adverse events, Ruben, is there, I mean, quite focused on the tail end of the catchment, but like, is there, taking those learnings from down Hawke's Bay and Gabrielle, like, is there a risk from in the upper catchment for the likes of slash and forestry blocks that are under harvest or whatnot at the moment? Is there been identified for down catchment? Because obviously it would raise some big issues quickly. And we don't notice it while it's lovely sunshine at the moment, but you get an adverse event that can create some big issues, and given this is heavily more urban down this end.
Yes, so certainly around the forestry, the council's got forestry teams that look at that and look at compliance of what they're doing. It's not something land drainage would be involved in, but I certainly across it. Yeah. In terms of that, but I guess it does mean that every now and then when there is big rainfall, upper catchment, we do get silt washing to the upper end of the catchment as well. So I know that's one thing the team do look at and doing some work around that now. There's been some drains that have been built. So that affects that whole hydraulic system. So there's some work done on there to remove the silts that wash out. The bigger events where you have whole trees coming down there, sort of overloaded, they do tend to affect the whole river system. So,
I was more maybe probably looking at those big blocks that create large problems real quickly.
There's definitely issues. Just here in Tierra, there's most probably 4,000 acres being planted up there on the hill. Yeah, Pookie Road Station and Manning's old block would be close to 4,000 acres, I imagine. That's all on pine trees just been planted in the last 10 years. Yep. So
about 30, 40 years from now, still. I got a second question too, if it's all right. Just around that land drainage operation work, and the planting of
the land drainage project.
Around that and your catchment management officer you guys are doing. How does that overlay with like catchment groups work that's happening around the place? Because they're also obviously lobbying for money and working as a larger scheme. And then also from your perspective and what you're doing, why and what's the targeted outcome of those plantings?
Okay, so I guess the targeted outcome of those plantings, I guess, is to long term to try and reduce some of the maintenance costs and reduce erosion. So they're probably the two main targets. So they can get plants in there that give some shading to the streams. It gets less long-term maintenance of digging drains and that sort of thing out of them. And it helps with the resilience of the flood program as well towards the end of that. So they're that's the reason that we have, and that's what was, it's how we pitched it for the funding. In terms of interaction with the different landowners and access and that, there is a lot of planting that goes on. There has been some groups that have, shown interest in doing various things. Potentially, there could be, as part of that sort of project, there could be some opportunity to plant if we produce plants, and that would be some in-kind sort of stuff as well. So I think it's this year probably not, because it's just kicked off. They want to be successful, but next year when we've got a lot more to do, I think there will be the opportunity to look at that. Whether it's a real opportunity or not, I don't know, because some of them will be a little bit further out. But I know that there are groups that are planting in and around all the farmers. Because also you want to be able to do it in line with some of the accords for Tartu or Fonterra, and try and pull some of that funding into this as well, and make their responsibilities and helps with their own kind funding. So
We have a very experienced project manager on the project, and she's been involved in a number of larger scale projects. So yeah, we can just raise that with her, just to bear in mind year 2. It could be a more collaborative approach.
Yeah, no, just aligning it with the national policy statement for Bridgewater that's obviously come out as well. So just ensuring that like catchments are, how do we align the two if you're spending money and ensuring that it is producing a good outcome that's good, given it's I guess it's taxpayer money and it's regional money at the same time, going to the same project. So
yeah, because it's all taxpayer money, so we've got to be careful how we spend it for a good outcome.
Just on that, Mr. Chair, if it's creating those plantings, it creates a pest corridor as well. And I assume that the funding is also going into that for sure. Pest management sectors.
Certainly, some of the agreement means that for the first couple of years, we would do some maintenance, and the maintenance of those plantings will go across to the pests. So there'll be some responsibility to manage pests amongst that. For sure.
That was going to be my question as well. That I think is we'd like. I'd definitely like to see that what they're signing up to, because I back onto the peak dome and no one comes and helps me, and I've got 10,000 possums to turn up all the damn time. And I think they should be knowing their responsibility of controlling those pests on their property. That we're not going to pick up that as a burden either. That, and I mean that in a good way. I don't mean in a bad way. That you know all your obligations up front. Not I will plant this up and then I'm expected to. This is the amount of pest control that's going to be placed upon me. I think that needs to be very clear.
Yeah. So the agreements that we've done are fairly standard for what they'll be using in the catchment office. When they're working on streams and that. So we'll get the fairly similar and standard to what landowner expectations are. Funding period's 3 years, so after that, there's an expectation that the landowners would be taking over the plantings.
And pest control.
And pest control.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Rosie. With this forestry, I know travelling out to Tyrone, harvesting hard out. Is it council's policy now to turn around and say when they replant, you have to have your 20-metre buffer zone in the bottom of the gully to prevent some of this pine needle / material entering the waterways?
Through the chair, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the council or about the forestry accord. Maybe we could get some advice.
We'll just get some advice to you through the resource use group who are responsible.
They have an opportunity to actually do some planting and rectify a problem that was initiated most probably 30 years ago. And then if it doesn't get a remedy, then the erosion becomes our problem rather than rectifying it now while they have the opportunity.
I'm not sure what the regional rules actually allow for, and I'm showing no ignorance there, but the landowners in the Te Ako area have been complaining for some time that the land that's been bought and planted, it's right up against streams, and no matter what the complaints are coming through the council, there's been no action on getting, those little trees pulled out or whatever, so, whether we've got enough teeth within the regional laws or not, I don't know.
When we turn around and say, well, if you don't do it, then we're going to target you with the drainage rate.
We can't in this forum. But there has been a paper come to council about, the, what I say, the horse trade. Yeah, of what should be best practice.
Mr. Chair, it's of relevance that one of the recommendations of the sea change stakeholders working group plan was not planting within up to 20-30 metres of streams. And there's a lot of definitions around angle and size of stream, but pretty much the principles, it's well proven that if you avoid planting, you mitigate a lot of issues. And there were complications around it, but it certainly was a recommendation. And Adam, when I think you do your research, perhaps that's one avenue you can investigate as to what's happened with that recommendation.
I also think that that's one of the issues that should be covered in the bylaw, and that's pushing the bylaw.
Funnily enough, it's very good.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm pretty sure forestry is not a permitted activity, so it's definitely consented. And there'll be rules around how else was consented, wasn't it? The one that we did.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and there's rules of how you are to operate in that area. So, and I'm pretty sure that I've heard a discussion that we're not meant to be harvesting close to streams and that's, and those teams are out there with Rudd investigating that those guys are operating within best practice.
I think clarification for the committee
No,
would be very useful.
yeah, no, I agree, but that's, and we could come back to how that's operated. Yeah.
It's in the RMA under plantation forestry, and our setback's 5 metres.
What?
5 metres.
Yeah, that's in the waterways. He's talking about in gullies and stuff.
Well, that's from a waterway. Yeah, then you've got
Yeah.
different boundaries, you've got different other roads. So,
Yeah, that's.
oh, that's a lot. I agree. I agree. And there's no requirement to plant that margin. So there is an option probably to try and put some pressure in that space.
We should raise we make it 20 metres something.
And that's a motion you could put through today to take from this group to go back through to regional council.
We've got to look at the terms of reference. I'm not sure if that's-
We can put an action.
Because I think it's permitted, we just planted a whole lot.
It's permitted activity.
It's permitted, so we just planted a whole lot of pine trees on the farms on the wall.
We got
no streams when
recommendations.
Oh, okay.
And top.
Yeah, well, whatever the structure is, but I mean, it can't go, you know, that's what's meaning. Yeah.
If there's no other questions. One question, so, Ruben, what is the total Ks that we're looking at planting? Hypothetically, like, within reason.
Depending on whether you have to have much, between 50 and 70 cuts.
Oh, well, so it could be 10% of the catchment.
With the stream plantings.
Well,
And that will depend on how far the funding goes for fencing and for labour grants. But the idea is that if we get this successful, then maybe we can leverage it for more funding.
Mr. Chairman, without stealing Bruce, Bruce is going to come and talk about the regional planning rules, but he's just put on the chat line that there is commercial forestry NES, National Environmental Standard. But I think want to be bold from that review. That will be an important connection. But we'll follow up outside the meeting and get some feedback. That's in.
The Bruce is probably going to come in one year.
Yes, so we just got one more.
Yeah. Can we have a secondary? Yeah, and so, sure. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Karen, thank you. Anthony?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think this is the 5-yearly scheme grazing licence agreement and fee review. Karen had touched on this earlier in the report, but Karen, did you want to make any special mentions or take as read?
Just that the process is a standard 5-yearly process inside council. There's nothing untoward. There's just a few minor changes around, updating the agreement itself with their landowners, a standard agreement, but legislative changes, wording around clarification and just in some points. And ultimately, we undertook the financial review, so market assessment of land grazing license and value with quotable values. So they completed that back in January. And so we brought it to this council for your information. ICMC will have to undertake the approval or decision on staff recommendation, which is to undertake the agreed increase in values. But ultimately, the report does give you further in-depth detail if there's anything particularly you want to know. Realistically, it's just a standard 5-yearly process.
Any questions?
So, Chair, just a question. Years ago, the way up the argument catchment committee then initiated a subcommittee made up on
Myself.
yourself to actually provide information. I would hope that those recommendations that came from the subcommittee made up part of this 5-yearly review.
I cannot be certain of that, but I'll take that question away and find out.
That would be a part of the last grazing licence, so you've upgraded it from what myself.
So the information that was provided to quotable value was the original revaluation, so it's starting point. And then it was really for them to just review what that means daily.
So we inputted to the policy of operational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the grazing limits.
It was more about the operation.
Yeah, that's right. Myself and Connell got input with the and how we operate within the grazing license, not the value of it. Yeah.
So the conditions within the agreement.
Yeah. And basically, Connell had some good points back then. It was grazing, how you determine grazing to do, and the other thing is Connell, there was grazing.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Karen, I'm assuming that, Karen?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that all the changes that we made at that point have remained in this agreement.
Yes.
And the only changes made are those ones that you've noted.
Yes, exactly. So on the slide A, B, C, and D, in the top box reflect the types of things that were updated in the agreement.
There's a list of the specific things that have been changed.
Yes, in the attachment, yes, there is. So yes, that started from where we were, it'll go backwards, we just added common sense things that need to be updated.
I'll just ask a question then. How do you ensure, like you had in there on your earlier slide around stock banks, it was 36% was stock damage on the banks, and I mean, I don't graze a stock bank, I don't have a stock bank near me, I don't lease one, I have a licensed one, but having driven up Coromandel and the district a little bit, and you do some damage on it, how do you manage that, and what's the ongoing ramifications of those? Obviously, that comes back to a targeted rate, having to build a remedy for those damages. But I mean, if that's an ongoing issue, and I'm not sure what was in that subcommittee that Connell was a part of, but I mean, I know it, and I think everybody here sees that nobody in this room you'd like to think was actually damaging the stock bank, but the requirement to keep them in good condition is the adverse event of them failing to a community is huge.
So part of that is the decision that we make for a start off as to whether we will lease them or not. So there's some areas that will not lease. But again, the actual agreement is quite strong on behaviours. There's conditions about use during the winter season. Yeah. stocking rates, size of animals, and all those sorts of conditions. And the fact that we have a permanent land management officer means that we are following up with any concerns being raised. And we're getting traction in that space. So we do have a standard process around if we find a defect, how we go about dealing with the landowner. If they don't wish to resolve that situation, there is quite a strict process we have in the last year, removed 2 leases off landowners. So, yeah, we're not hard nosed, but we are fair.
I think it's vital that they adhere to, because, yeah, like, obviously, again, not part of that flood that happened years ago, but seen funnel in the younger days online. When it did happen, and yeah, it has huge ramifications for the district. So.
Yeah, exactly. Flood protection, risk management is top priority.
For the 10 years that I've been involved, it has always been a heated part of the discussion that we want less of this to take place. I think, Connell, you could back that up in the years you've been here. You definitely wanted to see the landowners respect and take care of their banks, not use them as standoff pads.
And just like my kind of parents, it's sad to hear, but it's good to hear that there have been 2 grazing licenses removed, because some of the stuff that was going on was absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
And it's great that there's some people obviously been identified that perhaps don't look after the banks as well as they should over winter. And noted on that report earlier that there's our person going back and monitoring that absolutely needs to be supported. As Phil said, the consequences of failure are catastrophic.
And I think some of the bank assessment has been done by Sarah and her team a lot better. Like even I got one free up property and it was a failure for a black period, but that was fine. That means everybody's going to get a mark to go and do some work on them in their land lease. So I don't think that's a bad thing. But it makes you aware that you are on an asset that's of regional councils and it needs to be looked after. So I think that's a good. So, and I spoke to Sarah on the phone and she really, it was nice. We had a good chat. She said banks are being looked after better and there's less,
it's knocking on.
It's actually increasing and that's good to hear, but there's definitely always, like everything else, there's that 5% or 3% that cause difficulty. We need to come down hard on those ones. Definitely. Any other questions?
Yeah, right. Will each individual bank or area that's going to be grazed, will it be the value of it set independently, or will you just put one value across, say, like
every identified leased area has its own value. They may have similar values to a lot of others because, like for like situation, but part of the report, I think, has a table in it that talks to how we've identified that, or should I say how program values come up with those answers, and then we discounted those values for the fact that there are times when we will say get your stock off, we've got a problem, and that's acceptable. So there's standard reasoning behind how the values are put together.
Because one thing I've found is that the bank gets done, it gets regrassed, set up, but the topsoil's not there. The dirty word fertiliser to actually grow some grass, to graze some stock on it, is not allowed. The other thing is providing water and good fencing to maintain the stock within the area. So your value would be lower than what the original, like if someone was grazing or brought a full grazing property that provided water and fencing, would the council be providing water and fencing, or would
No, that's why they're discounted.
Yeah.
And that's why they normally lease to a neighbour.
Yeah.
rather than somebody who will use it as a standoff blocker or something because their animal, the actual farm's a long way away. So no, so they are discounted because of various reasons like that.
So does the landowner have, or the farmer next door have an opportunity to say, I think it's worth this, and you say it's worth that?
They can.
You can have a discussion on it.
So the letter that would go out once the review's completed does have an opportunity and time frame for people to come back and talk to us about the values.
Yeah. Would you take into consideration, if the farmer had a policy to say that within 5 millimetres of rainfall, there is no stock on that bank? If he put all those things in place, would that help in a discount or not?
Sure, haven't had that one raised before, but we'll take it into consideration in the discussion.
So that puts like onus back onto the farmer to make sure that things are taken care of, and if it's written in the document.
I think
Sure.
that we're trying to do a general grazing license or lease. So I think what you're talking about is most probably something to take offline because it most probably doesn't fit the policy at the moment, but it's most probably something in the future. If someone was prepared to do that, it could be talked about.
They have more than 200 of these, so.
All right. Any other questions? We have a mover on hold. Seconder. Caleb. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next one, please, Eva.
So the last item on the agenda today is going to be presented by Bruce McCullough, who is the manager for resource management policy and our strategy and planning directorate, information directorate. So I'd like to welcome Bruce, shortly by way of introduction or background. I think this was raised for the Waikato subcommittee late last year, and the subcommittee requested for further clarification around, I think it was triggered by the national environmental standards around fresh water, and in respect to our flood schemes and what rules the flood schemes operate under, what is and what is around permitted activity, and we've touched on that already this morning. So and our 3 members that we've just nominated, which I'll inform Bruce of after the meeting. So Bruce, you've got a complete working group now, 3 members from the Waikato.
Okay, good to hear.
So I'll hand over to you, and I'm sure you'll be more eloquent than me. And thank you, Bruce.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can hear me all right. Yeah, apologies I couldn't come over, but I've sort of had a day full of meetings, so I would have liked to have come over. But so yeah, as Adam said, I initially did my report to, I think it was the ICM committee last year. The purpose just to outline the provisions in the Waikato Regional Plan and the Regional Coastal Plan that apply to ICM carrying out its functions, and how the rule enables landowners to carry out their functions and work on their land, but also giving some statements about what the NPS for fresh water and the National Environmental Management, the National Environmental Standard for fresh water require, and also part of the paper covers the requirements of how we undertake a freshwater planning process. And when I wrote the paper, I was asked also to put in a section on how we undertake a private plan change if when such a change is ever requested. So I'll take my paper as read, but there are a couple of things I want to say. In terms of the freshwater plan review, we're in the sort of middle of that, if you like, and the timeline for that review is for public notification by the end of December 2027. That was altered by the government about a year ago. Originally the timeline was 2024, but having notification by 2024, but the government gave us an extra 3 years. So we've continued to work on the project since then. I just wanted to mention that the MPS FM and the NES are going to be changed by this government, and we're not exactly sure what the new versions of those documents will look like. Now that we were meant to have a discussion paper on the NES, on the MPS freshwater come out about now, I understood, but I think that's been delayed somewhat, and the government is changing its program for the review of those all the national guidance documents and the RMA review. So that's just one thing my team are dealing with. We do have, we'll be undertaking some stakeholder engagement in the middle part of this year. So it's a great opportunity to be involved. And my team have been working very closely with our colleagues in ICM. We've got some draft provisions in terms of land drainage and river and lake bed rules, which we're working through with our colleagues at the moment. In terms of the freshwater policy review, the topics covered include all freshwater topics in the RPS and regional plan. That includes the damming and diverting chapter and the river and lake beds module. And they're the modules which predominantly cover the activities of land drainage and flood control. Also, just wanted to make a couple of comments about how the NES, the relationship between the NES and the regional plan. So the provisions of the NES control all activities in freshwater and wetlands. A regional rule may be more stringent than the NES, but the NES actually takes precedent over any rules in the regional plan, whether either duplicated or are less stringent. So we can't be any less stringent in the regional plan than what the NES provides for. My report does include a section on the NES freshwater. But yeah, we are keen to work with stakeholders, and it's good to hear that you've got some people who are willing to help us out and work with us, and we'll be looking to do that in the middle of this year. But so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have or comments that you'd like to make.
Yeah, hi, Bruce, Robbie.
Yeah.
I think for us, when you're talking about drainage and flood protection down here, what's different in the Hauraki Plains is we've also got an issue with outlets into the Gulf, which I think is different from Waikato. Mainly their outlets are all going into the Waikato River, then go out to Port Waikato. We're trying to get this. We've got many outlets, especially Hauraki Plains District Council, of outlets that need servicing into the Gulf.
Yes.
And they are originally natural watercourses that have most likely been modified, and now they're having difficulty with the rules of how to clean those outlets into the Hauraki Gulf, and it's becoming a real major issue. I think you're probably aware of it. We had a councillor from Hauraki and Hamilton a week or two ago. Steve was there and talking about the same issue. So I think there needs to be Hauraki needs to be looked at a little bit differently there, because as I said, we've got many outlets into the Gulf, and where Waikato is mainly a Waikato River channel directly going out to the ocean, and we haven't got that luxury here. And the other thing is other things that block that channel, and it's not just silt, it's also mussels and other aquatic life is actually and mangroves that's causing the settlement and other things that can in that place, and we need to be able to operate safely and fairly of how we keep these schemes running and operating as easy as possible. So I think that's just one thing that most probably this is different over here than Lower Waikato. So I just want to make sure that point of views been that are heard loud and clear. So
Yeah, we have, thanks, Councillor Cookson, and there are some rules in our proposed regional coastal plan, which permit flood control and drainage activities, particularly around those river mouth areas. And just on the coastal plan, we're in the middle of hearings at the moment. So, and that is that provision of infrastructure, maintaining infrastructure is one issue which has been raised by submitters, including Hauraki District. So that's an area currently under consideration, and one of the issues which the committee is well aware of, the hearings panel is well aware of.
it's the outlet in that marine zone is the big issue, not and I'll just make that clear. It's not it's linked to the river, it's the river mouths into the marine zone is the big issue. So that is maintenance of that area is one issue which has come up in the submissions, I understand, and has been looked at by the panel. The other thing I spoke to, Minister Chris McLean, Minister of Agriculture, at Moran's WMP show 2 weekends ago. He was there, and he made it. He believed that the new freshwater would be going back. Well, his belief was it would be going back to similar to 2018 with a tweak, and interesting that, that's where they're looking at the moment. I don't know if you heard the same guidance or not, but that's what he was saying 2 years.
Yeah, we've been hearing similar things, but we've
we can't act on your
but we've just the timing it got a little bit unclear to us. That's all. And just when the government is going to do that, and whether and what order they're going to whether or not they're going to do the RMA review first and then national direction, or stick with the original proposal, which was to do national direction first, then RMA review. So we're just seeking some clarification on that matter.
Any other questions?
Just on those river mouths, Philip Luxell from Hauraki District. Currently, I understand that they are a permitted activity anyway.
Yeah.
Are we going to be fighting to maintain that? Is that what?
Should we see what is? So, what he's just talking about, permitted.
That means we don't have to get a resource consent to clear the river mouths if we have a sea event that blocks the river mouth.
Emergency works are covered under the RMA. Emergency, you've got to just get on and do it.
Yeah.
But Bruce, is there an issue with? Did you hear the question?
Sort of, yeah. Sort of, some of the words dropped in and out, so I was trying to listen as best I could, but.
So essentially, around mouths, there's a ability to clean them in general, as opposed to an emergency situation. The RMA provides for emergency works, etc., etc. So, in the normal course of events, are the river mouths able to be cleaned as a permitted activity?
Yes, that's my understanding of the regional coast of the operative plan and the proposed plan is that it does provide for those sort of maintenance activities of river mouths.
Is that what you're talking?
Yeah.
Does that also include streams and drains?
Yes, yeah. When you mean within the CMA, yes, yeah.
That's the coast.
Sorry, I missed that last
bit. So those provisions come from the coastal plan. You're saying?
Yeah, there's the the coastal plan covers the coastal marine area, and a lot of those activities, the removing of mussels, etc., dredging, are actually taking place in the coastal marine area. So the coastal
that's
plan,
existing plan. we've got the current proposed plan that's having hearings. Is there anything in the current hearing process that would challenge those provisions to be continued?
Not to my knowledge, but I'll check on that for you because we do have a number of submitters who have come on. I'll come back to you about that, but not to the best of my knowledge, no. People want to make sure that those schemes are maintained and work efficiently, as efficiently as they can.
Michael Warren is not in the room, but he is one of the commissioners hearing this. So
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Hauraki District Council has a submission on this on the basis that the regional plan acknowledges infrastructure of regional significance, and we have submitted that some of our infrastructure should be considered as also significant, even though it's district infrastructure, not regional. And our CE, David Spears, will be speaking to that in the submission process.
Yeah, and they will be in the next couple of weeks, I understand, where that
Yes.
topic is just presented to the panel. Yeah.
what's going around this? It's
Any other questions?
It is covered on page 111. You've got a section in there on Waikato Regional Coastal Plan.
Yeah, well, we'll go through submission now. We're looking to student on.
Yes, he's covered.
Is there any other questions of Bruce?
Any other questions of Bruce? Please here. Rightio. Oh, anyway, Adam will get back to you this afternoon with the 3 members that we've put on the committee, unless he wants to say it now. So we'll thanks, Bruce, and we'll move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
We have a mover and a seconder, please. So, again, no, not all in favour? Against? Carried. Well, thanks very much, everyone. We'll get Adam to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here, mai here, Tapunui. He here, he mama, he nako, he tanana, he henanaro, he ke ara takatu, ora, he rono, he paka, he tena, runi, hui, tai,
Thank you, everyone, for your participation and for meeting closed there.
Drop 24.
Well, thank you.